lovers, and welcome. I want to start off by saying I am so blessed to be in a position to suggest tips and tools and even products that can help you lead a tantric life of liberation and expansion. And one of my absolute favorite places to purchase spiritual and sexy items is Wands. Wands.com, spelled Wands. Wands sells, you guessed it, crystal pleasure wands, along with so much more, including yoni eggs, free bleed blankets, other amazing products for yoni steaming. I've been using these products and products similar to them for the better part of a decade, and they have been incredible allies in my journey of sexual healing and expanding my orgasmic potential. And I'm so grateful to be friends with the owner, Courtney. She's amazing. She has so generously provided us all with a discount code for 15% off, and that code is Leola. Leola. You can use it on their website, www.wands.com. Again, the code is Leola, Leola, for 15% off. I'll also make sure that this is linked in the show notes. So thank you for listening, and you're welcome for the inevitable pleasure and healing that is coming your way with these products. Now, let's get into the episode. Hello and welcome to Talk Tantra to Me. It is such an honor to be holding space for this divine knowledge to make its way into your ears and lifestyle. So I actually just went on to create an Instagram live, and I got all ready and I was excited to be live with the community. And sadly, Instagram has blocked me from using that feature again. And honestly, it's perfect medicine in a way, a great example of one of the things that I want to talk about today. So what I want to talk about today is kind of a few different things. I am currently sharing this new program with the world called Business and Pleasure. And it's a sensualist guide to six figures and beyond. And I'm going to be sharing a little bit more about the program later in the call. But my intention here is to share just a little bit of like the first layers of how I built a pleasure-led business. And if in the process of listening to this, you're like, ooh, I want the deeper, the next initiation, Business and Pleasure is a great place to be. And it is currently 50% off with Black Friday. We're not starting until January. But yeah, so one of the things that I feel like has led to a lot of my success in business is being able to have alchemy, right? So when something really frustrating happens in my business, like being censored on Instagram, for example, I don't just revel in the frustration. I find a way to alchemize it, to learn from it. And that's 1,000,000% what is happening right now. And there's been so many initiations with censorship specifically, and so many initiations in other parts of my business that aren't working or we're failing or whatever. But there is a mindset, there is a perspective of knowing that everything is happening on purpose. This is a very tantric concept, right? And choosing to alchemize and find the pleasure, find the yum, find the turn on, even in the things that aren't working. And I did ask my audience about, I asked you guys, hey, Business of Pleasure is coming. I want to know what you guys want to learn about. I want to know what questions you have for me. So I did write down a few of those questions that you guys asked. And it's funny that one of them actually was, how do you deal with censorship? So I'm just going to start there because it feels organic. I was going to get to that way later. But yeah, I run a very sensual brand, and I've had accounts deleted. I've been locked out of accounts. Most recently, obviously, my ability to go live is withdrawn. But also very recently, I couldn't collaborate for like about 2 months. Like they took away my collaboration feature, which is really annoying because I do a lot of podcasts, and it's really good for the podcast and for me and for like everyone to be able to collaborate on those posts. It makes it
like it's like an extra step harder for people to find me and to continue to engage in this expansive, powerful work when that feature is taken away. So it's something that I've dealt with at every stage of my business, and it's something that I am still dealing with. And it's annoying and I hate it. And I don't let it stop me from showing up. I don't let it stop me from showing up. Instagram is not the only platform, right? We're here, we're on Apple Music or Spotify or YouTube or wherever you're listening. There's so many places for your voice to be heard. And if you truly believe in the mission and the impact of your work, you will find a way to talk about it and find the place where the people are that need to or desire to hear about it. Now, that being said, I also like to think about censorship as, wow, why would they censor something? They would censor something because it is challenging the societal norms. It is incredibly powerful. And when we think about the individuals throughout history who have been censored, like Jesus Christ, like Galileo, like powerful witch women, Joan of Arc, right? All of these individuals or cultures were challenging the current narrative and trusting themselves and actually creating a portal for society, for humanity to evolve and grow and expand. And that's exactly what I'm doing now. So when I think about it like that, it's like, okay, like, yeah, it sucks to be censored. It sucks to be censored. And look at the company that I'm keeping. All right. If Jesus could keep going, I'll keep going. Um, Hoping that it doesn't end in a crucifixion, and I don't think it will. But yeah, I wanted to pop that in. Another question that was asked is, how do you make money and grow in your business and in your impact if you don't have a social media following? And I want to share that when I first launched my Tantra business, I did not have a social media following. I started a brand new account. Um, and I mean, I did have an account that was more like modeling focused and like my travels focused, but it was not about this world at all. And I started a whole new account that had 0 followers, and it was more for my podcast. And even to this day, my old account, which actually now still has more followers than my Tantra account, like I make no money from that. Like the people that are following that account aren't the audience of the content that I'm doing now. So the point that I'm saying is when I started out, I didn't have, come on, sorry, I'm letting my little dog up. I didn't have the audience either. But what we don't realize is, most of the evidence that we're getting for business success that is easily accessible is on Instagram. But there's a lot of business success that isn't happening on Instagram, that isn't being shown on social media. But like, how did business people do it before social media? Like, you don't need social media to be really successful. However, it is an incredible tool, and I would highly, highly recommend investing in this resource, especially right now. And that's one piece of advice that I would have given myself even earlier, was to work through my blocks with social media way sooner than I did. Um, and as mentioned, in the program Business and Pleasure, I'm not just going to be sharing the things that have worked for me. I'm also going to be sharing the things that I would do differently if I were to start now. And that's like 1,000,000% one of the things that I would work on now, is my relationship to social media, looking at the shadow aspects of social media as well as the light aspects, and getting into integrity and cleanness with social media. But yeah, in the beginning, I got most of my clients by like on other websites that were specifically focused around my field. So Tantra. So a lot, like I would say the first like couple years of my business, most of my income came from this website called Sacred Arrows, which is a platform for, professional tantrikas or individuals in the sacred intimacy space. I also got a ton of my clients through the podcast as well. So just know that you don't need to have a ton of followers. And even to this day, like a lot of my clients, may have, like they're coming from like my retreat or other places, and then they come back and keep reinvesting as well. So very often when I'm launching something, I'm really just like reaching out to my past people that have been in my spaces, that have been in my events and things like that. And it's a lot lesser coming just from me posting on social media as well to this day. So just something to think about. You don't need to have a big audience. And I'll also say too that there are people that have hundreds of, like, I know a woman who has over 100,000 followers, and she is like living month to month, like she's not making money. And I have friends that have 5K followers, and they're making six figures or multiple six figures. There's a woman that has 15,000 followers and is making $1 million. So you don't need a huge audience, but they are showing up consistently on social media, those individuals. Now, another way to think about it is like I've often said that I don't really like need to go viral on Instagram. Yeah, it feels good. It's like a good dopamine hit, but at the end of the day, interestingly, like my most popular posts aren't the ones that have made me the most money. I was saying to one of my business clients a couple weeks ago, he posted this post and was like, "Oh, I don't know if it's good or if people like it or not." And I was like, don't look at the likes and the comments necessarily as a measure of whether or not the offer you have is good. It's like, I remember a couple years ago, I was doing a women's retreat and I posted this like very basic reel about the women's retreat, and it didn't get a lot of engagement at all. But one woman saw it. One woman saw it and immediately booked the retreat. And that's, several $1,000s just immediately from that one post. Whereas the next day I had a post that, got 40,000 views and no sales, so it's the metrics of the likes and the engagement and the amount of people that are seeing your content isn't as important as speaking to the right person at the right time, right? So, and then I'll add one more little piece on this. One of my business mentors has said like having, and she has a bunch of, it's actually Mel Wells, who's going to be guest teaching in business and pleasure. So grateful to have her. She's been my business mentor for the last 2 years, but she has I think almost 200,000 followers on Instagram. And she says, honestly, like we put a lot of energy into getting all these new followers, but at the end of the day, and I'm probably not saying this super perfectly, so please don't quote her through this, but I'm trying to repeat what I took from it in essence, but it was something along the lines of like, honestly, it's just more people and there's more of like the bullshit and the haters and all the other things. And yeah, so just another little piece. Okay, let's answer another question. That's another question. Sorry, I'm looking at my notes. I wrote down the questions. What does a typical day look like for you? So again, I consider myself a pleasure-led entrepreneur, and let's actually step back. Let's step back. Let's go back. Let's go back a tick. I'm gonna lean into just understanding that every day is really different in my business. And I also want to really acknowledge another question. I'm gonna veer into another question because it kind of leads into what do I do every day? Okay. So one question that I get all of the time, is how do you do it all? Like you have so much going on. How do you do it all? How do you have it all? It's like the number one like reflection that I get from my clients or even fellow coaches in the community. How do you do it all? Or even I have all of these different ideas. I want to start a podcast. I want to do a retreat. I want to do this. I want to do that. How do you do it all? How do you know what to do first? And again, in Business of Pleasure, I'll be teaching a framework that I use to try to fit it all in, not at once, because that's not possible, but how to prioritize building an empire one little piece at a time so that you can actually sustain the pieces as you go and not get overwhelmed by too many projects. But, just on the surface, I'm hosting retreats. I have a podcast. I'm posting almost daily on Instagram. I'm running several online coaching containers. I'm working with people one-on-one, in person and online. I'm marketing my book. I'm hosting regular play parties. And that's just in my business. And I'm probably missing a couple of things. But also at the same time, I've fallen in love and gotten married and bought a house and decorated it like so perfectly and immaculately and so my style. If you're watching the video, you can see I've got this like really fun wallpaper. My home is such my sacred place. And so, yeah, I felt so blessed to be able to take off all this time to really get settled and make my home a home. Okay. I also host pretty much all of the major holidays at our home in my friend group. I've built this epic sisterhood with true depth, like the type of sisterhood, the type of friends that I used to look up to on Instagram. Like I'm literally close friends with women that I used to follow on Instagram and was like, oh my God, her life is so cool. I wish I had her life. And now I do. Like I have my version of her perfect life and also we're friends. It's amazing. I also have the time and the spaciousness to cook super nourishing meals regularly. Not all the meals in my house, but like I'm cooking delicious home cooked meals. I have time for that in addition to my business, in addition to all these other things. I also get to travel for work and for pleasure super abundantly. So when we look at all these things, the life things, the work things, it's a lot. I have a lot going on. Sorry, dog. I have a, guys, I have a lot going on. Guys, come on. I have a lot going on. There's so much going on. How do I fit it in? How does it all work? And I want to really acknowledge that it wasn't like one day I had nothing going on and the next day I had all these things happening. Again, I share how in the business of pleasure, how I slowly added things to the stove. So I've got some things on the front burner, I've got some things on the back burner, I've got a whole team working in another part of the kitchen, okay? Didn't happen overnight, but I moved slowly so that I didn't get overwhelmed and I was really in touch with my pleasure and felt good and where I needed to create spaciousness. And this is a real practice of self-awareness and calibration. And that's such a foundation of Tantra. The secret to me being able to do it all and have it all is truly being in devotion to living a tantric lifestyle. That is what it means to have a pleasure-led business. Tantra, tan is to expand, tra is to liberate. In the, Tantra is a Sanskrit word, ancient language from East Asia, in which many Hindu, religious, incredible spiritual texts were written. Tan means to expand in Sanskrit, tra means to liberate in Sanskrit. So Tantra is a path of expansion and liberation. And that's so broad, that means something different from one person to the next. What is expansive and liberating to me is very different than what's expansive and liberating to you. And also, what is expansive and liberating to us individually is changing all the time. And so, there is such an important piece with this work around calibration, calibrating to what is expansive and liberating to me now. What is bringing me the most pleasure, joy, depth in my life now? Is the thing that I've been working so hard to get, now that I finally have it, is it actually serving me? Yes or no? What do I need to shift? Right? That's a pleasure-led business. And pleasure is my line of work. This is what I'm teaching people, how to get connected to their highest truth, their most authentic self, and to really feel and enjoy the pleasure of what it means to be alive by being in devotion to your authentic self. So if pleasure is my line of work, I cannot run a business out of integrity with my own passion and principles. So from the very beginning, these have been my principles and they have served me so well. I look around and I see, all these coaches on Instagram like hustling hard, making it happen. But I've also seen pretty much all of them realize a couple years in that they are insanely burnt out. And I see them just disappear from Instagram or really take a massive step back to recalibrate, which is great. I'm happy that they're doing that. But I wonder what it would look like if they started from that perspective of a pleasure-led business and built their business in a way that was truly nourishing to them and regulated in their nervous system and in integrity as well. Because a lot of us are building these businesses out of fight, flight, fear, right? Like, I have to make this money because if I don't, then I'm gonna there. And then it's like, and then once you do have a level of stability in your finances, then oftentimes it's like the dopamine hit or the comparison to the other coach. I've got to keep going. And it's like really outwardly focused and not in tune with our deepest desires, our truth. This isn't a program. The way that I teach isn't we're going to get you to $1 million this year. Although that might just happen and I'm not mad about it, but it's more about, can you have a life that is truly like juicy and what you actually desire? Like, you're not striving for the money just for the sake of having a certain dollar amount in your bank account. You're striving for the money because we believe that money creates empowerment and freedom and spaciousness. But if we're not careful, the pursuit of money, the pursuit of financial freedom, the pursuit of the $1 million a year can actually take us even farther away from the freedom that we desire to have. I'm going to say that again. If we're not careful, the pursuit of money or business success can actually take us even farther away from the freedom we desire. Enter a pleasure-led business, one where we are so connected to our pleasure and our truth that it becomes increasingly difficult to interact with our business when it feels out of alignment with our pleasure, or it feels obligatory, or it feels like in our nervous system and stressful. We begin to notice that the dopamine hit of making a sale is never as good or sustainable as having the real relationships that we deeply desire, which takes creating space and time instead of constantly seeking out the next mountain to climb.
Hello, lovers. Please bear with me for a brief interruption with a vulnerable share and offer from my heart. So, when I first began my journey with spiritual intimacy and sacred sexuality, all I could afford were books and free podcasts. I was just out of college in my early 20s and honestly very, very broke. And I'm so grateful for all the complimentary, kind words and affordable wisdom that have gotten me where I am today. Price shouldn't deter you from healing. It shouldn't deter you from living the life you love or from reclaiming the most powerful energy in your body. It's my belief that time and commitment are also very powerful investments, especially when you're just dipping your toes in the water. You'll know when it's time to make the bigger cash investments in your journey, but let's begin together today with free love from my heart to yours. As you've already discovered, this podcast is free and it includes so much life-changing wisdom, but I'd also love to guide you to some free offers that are on my website, including a downloadable sexual shadow work workbook and a pleasure positive meditation. Both of these resources are amazing places to start in integrating the tantric principles of expansion and liberation into your life. And you can access these at www.talktantra2me.com/free or find a direct link in the show notes. Now let's get back to the episode.
The truth is that most people think that they need to be a millionaire or make a certain amount of money to have a really pleasurable life. But when it comes down to it, a lot of people, the vision that they actually want is sustainable with a lot less, probably more than what they're currently bringing in, but a lot less than what they think. So for example, let's say your desire is to live somewhere near the beach, work only a few hours a day, and then be able to take off, go for a walk with your beloved, your dog, go out for a nice dinner several times a week, have like support around the house. Like that's kind of your bar. Generally speaking, again, that doesn't take $1 million to reach. It actually takes way less. But if you focus on doing things that certain way that you're seeing other people do that are really hustling and striving and pushing, it's not going to get you what you really want. And you're going to be sacrificing what really matters to you, which for most people is their relationships, along the way. And a pleasure-led business allows you to actually enjoy the view instead of racing up that mountain and then finding the next peak to race up and continuing your race. Okay, enjoy the view. And let's get into a little bit about my day-to-day, because that was the question that kind of sparked this. But here's the real talk. My business turns me the fuck on. I built an empire. I built an offer suite that is so diverse and juicy and exciting. That's what works for me. That's what I like. That's not for everyone. And I also want to be clear that even in business and pleasure, I'll say, hey, the way that I did things, not all of them are going to work for you. but I'm going to give you different options so that you can feel into the path that is the best for you with different options with a menu, right? But again, this didn't happen overnight. And I want to give you the tools to do it now and do it faster by sharing what worked for me and what didn't, and what I do now if I were to do it all over again. Okay. And every day is different, like I said. So I do these little reels on Instagram, and maybe you've seen them where I'm like a day in the life of a pleasure priestess. And here I am on a podcast interview, and here I am at the nude beach in Austin, and here I am getting ready for a play party. Yeah, a lot of my days look like that. They look like prepping for amazing events. They look like jumping on podcasts and calls with amazing humans. They look sexy and sweet and yummy. And there's also days where I am rotting in bed. There are days where I completely blow off my business so hard. And this is something that may sound contradictory to everything I've been saying so far. And I don't think that any other life coach like will admit this to their followers or the clients, but I've actually already told the women in Pleasure Priestess, which is my year-long mastermind for women. It's like a tantrika training program. But I told the women in there, we go deep, we get vulnerable. They see like so many of the behind the scenes of my life, and I give them the downloads of like, yeah, just like what's working, what's not. Like little Leola downloads. Anyways, I shared with them, so I feel like might as well share here too. Love you guys as well. But I told them there are like 3 to 5 days a month that I legit want to quit my business. I'm like, I don't want to do this today. I don't want to do this today. And in this moment, it feels like I never want to do it again. And I truly feel that this is so normal and not talked about enough. But guess what? Having a pleasure-led business makes these days totally okay and totally possible. I know there are going to be, again, about 3 to 5 days a month where I just like don't want to do it. I just don't want to. And oftentimes it's in my luteal phase where I'm a little bit more moody and the serotonin and the dopamine are dropping. And what ends up happening is on those days, I hand off what needs to be done to my team. I let the things that can go on the back burner go to the back burner, and I rot in bed or I go shopping or I hang with my friends or whatever I need to do to fill my cup. And it's actually rare that if anything, I have to do that day or like have calls. It's very rare that I have like calls or appointments on those days because I only take calls like once a week, sometimes twice, but only when I've been traveling a lot and like taken off like a full week or two. Then I might have 2 calls the next week or the week before the travel. Otherwise, it's 1 call a week. And on those call days, I usually don't even start before noon or and then I'm done by 5 p.m. So even if I wake up on a day that I have calls, it's like, oh, I don't want to do business today. It's like, oh, but I have until noon to like resource myself enough to get through 3 hours of calls. Like I can do that. Right. And the same even goes for, going into a retreat. It's rare that I'm at a retreat. It like never happens where I'm like, I don't want to do my business today because I'm very mindful. I have a pleasure-led business where before I go into a big service, I'm so lean back and so nourishing myself and taking care. Okay. And so I have these days where I completely rot, I quit my business. And in the end, I'm so happy that my business is still there on the other side. And I'm like, yes, I can't believe I wanted to quit. I love this. It's so amazing. And I'm able to do that because I built fuck yes foundations. I created systems and strategies on the days when I did have a lot of motivation and a lot of momentum. And early on in my business, started weaving in things intentionally that would support me to have this spaciousness. And guess what? Even on the days where I quit, quote unquote, quit my business, it doesn't quit me. It doesn't quit me because I still have automatic payments coming in for my programs, people reading my sales emails and listening to my podcasts, buying my book. All this stuff is happening even when I'm not present in my business. It's actually real life magic. And that turns me on so much. Another thing that turns me on are the people that I attract. My clients are legit soulmates. Shout out to my clients listening. I love you. I actually had an entire table of my past and current clients at my wedding. It was amazing. And that's another thing that like I don't treat my business relationships as just business relationships. Yes, I have boundaries with my clients, but I see them as people and I build real connection with them, which creates a lot of compassion and grace going both ways. So even if I do have a call with a one-on-one client and I'm like, hey, today is one of those days where I'm mooning and I'm feeling like I need the rest. Is it okay if we push it a couple days? It's like, awesome, no worries. Let me voice note you the thing that I need urgent support on, and then I'll see you on Thursday. It's great. It's amazing. And this inspires them to also lead in the world that way and to stay with me, to stay in my business ecosystem for years because they are loving the community that is there. So, the essence I'm trying to say is having a pleasure-led business is not just taking people's money, providing a service, and then piecing. What's pleasurable to me is actually building a relationship. And again, that doesn't mean I don't have boundaries, but I also am intentional to make the expectations of how and when I'll be available very clear from the beginning. Another thing that people asked were, what are your different revenue streams? Now, I want to just first off start by saying I did not build this all out at once. But again, in the Pleasure Priestess, I will share how and what I folded in at different times to prioritize business success alongside my pleasure. But yeah, different revenue streams. The very first thing that I had was tantric body work. Then I started doing one-on-one coaching. Then I created my first online program, Turned On by Life, which doesn't really, that's kind of out now. That's not really an active revenue stream for me at this moment. Tantric body work used to be a huge one for me. Now it's a much smaller part of my business. The retreats are still a really big part of my business. One-on-one coaching is medium to lower part of my business. I have group programs. The Pleasure Priestess is one of my biggest revenue streams. The Higher Love Club is my membership. It's not a huge revenue stream, but is recurring revenue. What else do we have? We have my book, which is also recurring revenue. What am I missing? There might be a few more things in there, but I want to really speak into the recurring revenue piece because this is so important. I intentionally folded in recurring revenue about 2 years ago, and it's game changing and something that I would have invested in much sooner if I would have known better. My recurring revenue today, like my recurring revenue alone, month to month, brings in a more than enough to pay my bills, which means when I enter each month, I go in totally relaxed and at ease because I'm not worried that if I don't sell anything new, I'll go into debt or starve or have my savings depleted. It's so pleasurable. And again, it didn't happen overnight. It took a lot of building to get there, but any new enrollments or clients or sales that I'm coming in are just bonus. I don't have to launch anything. Like business and pleasure, I wasn't meaning to launch this right now, but I was like, kind of feel like helping other people do what I've done, and I've got a little bit of space. Why not? Like it's all bonus. How fucking dope is that? And the whole point of me saying this is to make it more attainable for people at large, to you, to open the veil and show you how it is possible for you to have a pleasure-led business. Because 5 years ago, when I started Talk Tantra to me, I didn't really know if it was possible. I was like, this is like a side hustle that I'm trying on. But it kept growing and I kept trying new things and leaning in and alchemizing. And so, other questions I haven't answered. Da, 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 da. Answered that. I answered that. How do you deal with failure or when there are crickets? So, yeah, I want to talk a little bit about business and pleasure in this way. So, we're going to be covering different things in this program that are more strategic, more like training style, like, how to write your best-selling book, how to write it, or how to start a podcast that sells for you, or get on other people's podcasts, how to build an offer suite that turns you on and keeps people in your ecosystem, how to sell, like very clear, like how to's, but also like energetic wise as well, like the feminine part. And part of that, one of the things that we'll be talking about is imposter syndrome and how you deal with failure, things like that. What are you doing when there are crickets? And I just want to share really briefly some of the things that I do. And the number one thing has been separating your worth from your work. So many of us, when things aren't working in our business, when there are crickets, we immediately make it mean that we're not good enough, we're bad. There's even like people in the coaching industry say, charge your worth, right? And it's like, what if instead of charging your worth, you charge what your work is worth? And leave your precious inner child out of it. Because that's really what it is. Like our inner child is like, oh, I'm not good enough. Oh, and it's like, it's tough. So I want to put that there. And also just like seeing failure as a lesson. Being an entrepreneur, and I say this all the time to my clients, being an entrepreneur is like throwing spaghetti at the wall and seeing what sticks. And when it doesn't stick, getting curious about why. Did I just not cook it long enough? Is it not the right type of spaghetti? Like, what is it? Right. And so there is like a level of comfort that gets to come with failure and twisting failure on its head and saying, this is a part of it. And I'm out there and I'm trying and I'm learning. And every failure is getting me closer to my win. Okay. So those are all the questions that I have for information about, or that I got from you guys on business and pleasure. And also I added a bunch of other things in there. I want to just briefly share just a little bit more about this amazing program. It's currently on a Black Friday special. So if you're listening to this before Black Friday on Monday, like sneak in now because it's at a significant discount. But business and pleasure is this space where we're deciding you don't have to choose between business or pleasure. It's both, baby. This is a sensualist guide to six figures and beyond. It's a 6-week program, 2 calls a week. They're happening on weekdays in the afternoon, but everything is recorded so that you can go back and listen. We're going to be covering a lot in those 6 weeks as well. There's no way you're going to be able to, like, for example, in 1 week, we might be talking about your podcast. You might not even get your podcast out until the 6 weeks are done, if that's something that you want to do. But then the very next day, we'll be talking about how to write a best-selling book. You also can't, it would be very difficult to release a best-selling book in those 6 weeks. So the intention of it is, hey, I'm going to give you all the things, and you can decide what you want to start with to build your empire, but you have access to this forever to go back and re-listen when it is time for you to bring in some of these other components that aren't as priority or timely, right? Okay. So, sounds all good to be true. It's not. It's not too good to be true. But this is a program where we're teaching you to balance, again, those feminine energetics, those beliefs, that magnetism, as well as the masculine structures. And this is setting yourself up for a pleasure-led business. We're investing in these systems and the self-trust now, which will lead to, profit and pleasure for years to come. But it is building. The first week, we're focusing on fuck yes foundations. Like, we're building this foundation and then showing you how you can layer in these other pieces that allow you to scale to your bliss, to build your dream team, to have sold out events and retreats and group offers and things like that. Okay. How to build like your authority and be seen as an expert so people actually want to buy from you and have you talk on their guest programs, right? So many juicy, juicy things. We also have 2 guest experts. Again, one is Melissa Wells. She's iconic. She's amazing. And then the other one, and she's going to be talking about like launching specifically, which I feel like she has mastered. She like loves launching, which is really hard to believe. If you've ever launched before, you're like, oh, it's stressful. No, she like makes love to the launch. It's so lovely. And then I also have Luna Battaglia, who is one of my closest friends. She is truly an artist and such a soul-led entrepreneur. If you're one of those people that's like, oh, I don't want to feel like salesy or like marketing is so hard, it's like she will help you get connected to the soul of your offer and the souls of the people that actually really need it so you don't feel weird about it. You also, as soon as you join, again, we're not starting until January, but as soon as you join, you get access to Money is My Lover, which is a 3-part training designed to shift your relationship with money into one of empowerment and impact. So many of us have this like taboo and kind of crunchy relationship with money. And this program is going to help you make love to money, see how money makes impact, see the divinity, the spirituality, as well as the shadow in money, so that you can move with money in integrity and become an immaculate stewardess of money instead of kind of ignoring it, putting it on the back burner, etc. And just know, when you heal your relationship to money, you are healing your ancestry. You're breaking thousands of years of financial oppression and also healing your worthiness wounds, which is so powerful. So that's an immediate bonus that you get. 444 value. Immediately as soon as you join, you get Money is a Lover. So That's all the things that I have. There is also a VIP option called the First Class Founder for Business of Pleasure. If you would like some more one-on-one connection with me, that's something to look into as well. Otherwise, that's all that I have for you guys today. Thank you so much for tuning in, for getting curious. To me, there is nothing sexier than having a life that is truly able to be lived and enjoyed. And having a pleasure-led business, having a revenue stream that is not only making the world a better place, but making your world a better place is life-changing. You did not come here just to work, sleep, and pay your bills, baby. You came here for so much more. You came here to thrive, and this is the path that I know works. All right. Thank you so much, loves. We'll catch you next time. Ta-ta.
Oops, just kidding. Still here. I have one last thing for y'all. I want to say that the internet is a really, really special place. It's why we're all here right now. And many of us, including me, wouldn't have discovered Tantra or sacred sexuality if it weren't for this nifty invention of the 20th century. And almost none of you would have found my work and my vision without it. I love the internet, and I deeply desire to expand beyond it, to experience more real life love, community, and connection. So I invite you to check out upcoming Tantra events at www.talktantratome.com/events, or click the link in the show notes. I can't wait to give you a big squeeze in real life. Okay, now that's it. Ta-ta for real. Ta-ta.